We begin with Senate Republicans who are now demanding Attorney General Merrick Garland appoint a special counsel to investigate the president's role in the Biden family's foreign business dealings. The allegations of Joe Biden taking bribes during his time as vice president is what's at the center. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley claims that a Burisma executive paid then Vice President Biden and his son $5 million each, though not directly. You'll remember that nebulous web of entities at the center of all this. And that the executive, he still has voicemails to prove it.
The foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot.
And as you would expect, the White House, they are dismissing the shocking allegations. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, she was quick to deflect any pressing questions at yesterday's briefing.
Is the White House aware of any recordings in which the president might be on tape speaking to a Burisma executive?
So the president spoke to this. I think he was shouted a question about this at the Thursday press conference, and I'm just going to quote him and say it's malarkey.
And President Biden, well, he's dismissing the claim, too.
Are there tapes that you accepted bribes, President Biden? Is that true? Would you comment on the arrest of the former president, sir?
Laughing it off. Mark, what's at the center of this, of course, is that FD 1023. Now, this is a highly credible source, as he's described, his conversations with a Burisma executive, but it is an allegation laid out in a form. But the tape recordings are what are interesting to me. They're, again, an allegation in the form, 15 with Hunter Biden and this Burisma executive, and an allegation that there are 2 with Joe Biden himself. If his voice is on tape, that is a game changer in the court of public opinion.
100%. And also this is coming from Chuck Grassley, who is an unimpeachable source. Yes. No one questions him. No one thinks he's partisan. He's a champion of whistleblowers. And so if he's saying this is true, it's true. This is why half the country thinks that the charges against President Trump are political. Is because, you know, the indictment of President Trump is pretty searing, but in a vacuum, but people don't see it in a vacuum. They see it in the context of the fact that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton weren't charged for similar misconduct. They see it in the context of the Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy theory investigation, which ended up being nothing more than conspiracy theory, 2 impeachments, the Alvin Bragg indictment, the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop, and now we're learning through whistleblowers about this damning information. They see a pattern here, and they're not wrong. And
to add to that pattern, Dagan, you know, I've been saying for days, when you indict a former president, unprecedented, you should hear from the Attorney General in some capacity, even just a statement. We haven't heard from the Attorney General. And when you add to that 5 years of investigating Hunter Biden, 5 years, it's a long time. And then to add to that, Jonathan Turley, who always has such a way with words, he said this about Robert Hur, who's pursuing the Biden documents case, the special counsel. After only 6 months, it may be a tad early to put Robert Hur's face on milk cartons with a "have you seen me" man plea. However, it would be reassuring to see some proof of life in the investigation of Biden's classified documents.
Right, and Turley went on to talk about, in terms of her, where is the grand jury? Where is has he interviewed Joe Biden? Has he even gotten a statement? Because again, if the low-hanging fruit is you get someone on the record, if you make a false statement, then that's against the law and it's a felony. But in terms of another special counsel that the Republicans are calling for to investigate Biden family corruption, that idea is BAD terrible. Number one, that special counsel would report to Attorney General Merrick Garland, and he is the grand poobah of the department formerly known as Justice, which is now just functioning as a bazooka gun for the Democrats to target conservatives, both large and small. Andy McCarthy said Garland could simply just appoint a good old Democrat who will just bury the entire thing. So it could hugely backfire. Garland could expand the purview of what Robert Hur is doing and just broaden his oversight, his jurisdiction to include bribery and corruption, as Garland did with Jack Smith to include January 6th. The only way out of this corruption with injustice is to vote out the Democrats. That's the only way that you're ever going to get true justice out of the Department of Justice.
And I talked to a DOJ official, former DOJ official, who, when I asked him about this FD 1023, he said, while the Department of Justice wouldn't comment on any specific investigation, it is fair to ask them, have you expanded Robert Hur's jurisdiction to look into this? Is this being handled as a routine matter, or is it not being looked at all? I think Americans deserve that answer.
Americans deserve a lot of answers. And as you said, the Department of Justice has sort of turned into this bazooka, flame throwing toward conservatives. We see it with the media as well in the way they're covering all of this, right? They're seeing the Trump indictment as the biggest, huge news, and it is big news. There's no doubt about that. But they're also, when the former president of the United States went on from his indictment to then go speak to people, oh, shut that down. We don't need to see that. That's a campaign piece. We don't need to see that. We're at this network. We don't believe in showing you misinformation and untruths. Well, how do you know what he's going to say? I mean, you're going to not show anything before you even know what he's going to say?
Yeah.
So this massive media platform as well to shine this stuff up, to push some under the rug, amplify others, is really, really troubling to me as a journalist.
Yes.
And when PBS puts a little disclaimer on its lower third saying that if we show you some of this, experts have said it might inflame tempers and violence may come out of it. Who are these experts? Who is PBS to say that Americans can't handle themselves and they can't watch television and watch a former president speak and function? Everyone will go, January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. I just think Americans are being shrouded from way too much information, and all of this is included in that.
And Molly, we have some of that, and I want to play it. But first, let me caveat this with, it's a basic premise of fairness, I think, to, if you have maligned someone in the press for days and days and days, and on some of these networks, it does not seem like innocent until proven guilty. Yes, for the former president, some networks convicted him in the court of public opinion. It would seem fair to allow him to respond. But instead, here's what we got from the liberal media.
I don't need to see any more of that. He's trying to turn this in. He's trying to turn it into a spectacle, into a campaign ad. That's enough of that. We've seen it already.
That's the picture over your brilliant words. We don't need to see that anymore. We know where he is.
We do not intend to carry these remarks live. As we have said before in these circumstances, there is a cost to us as a news organization to knowingly broadcast untrue things.
Now, let me just separate this out. Jake Tapper was responding to replaying some of the footage of his stop at Versailles, the bakery, whereas that last clip is responding to why they would not carry his remarks live on MSNBC. And I believe they didn't on CNN either.
Yeah, and the panel's actually made some great points on all of these issues. There is the issue of fairness at play here. Broadly speaking, the American people see all of that, as well as the issue of what the media chooses to show you. At least they're acknowledging that they're not giving you the full truth. They're saying, sorry, here's the scrubbed version. We know you want to hear what the defendant, who was in court today, remarkably historically the former president of the United States. We're going to clean this up for you first and give you a version that we think is appropriate. But in this day and age, the American people and viewers don't have to put up with that, and they can go somewhere else to get the real truth of the story. So I don't know how effective that would ultimately be, because they can still see former President Trump out on the campaign trail. He is still campaigning. You can't pretend that he's not. You can't pretend that he's not leading in the polls. And he still had a chance to respond and give at least a little bit some of his legal arguments that he made.
Yeah, air the Bedminster remarks and let the American people decide for themselves. They're very smart. Let them be the judge.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.